Hello and thank you for joining us. This is Limping on Cloud 9. My name is Jonathan Nato. I'm your host, and as always, I am with Hamad Zaidi. So what's going on today? What path are we going down today, Hamad?
Well, today I wanted to talk about icons, meeting them, befriending them, and more so also talk about finding that you're in the right place in life, essentially. And so today I wanted to actually share two different stories that are both tied into both UCLA, meeting icons, and just having moments in life that kind of nudge you on your journey, which I guess is the general theme of everything I talk about, right?
Yeah.
So let me start with the first one. The first one is about how I met and befriended Carl Durrell. And when I met him, he was the head coach of the UCLA football team. But the story goes way before then. Carl, I'll start with this. Carl caused me to lose a grade in high school 20 years before he met me.
No kidding.
So this is how. Circa 1984, Overland Park, Kansas, where I grew up, as people that are listening to this podcast know, I took a radio TV class in 10th grade of high school. At the end of the semester, the big project was to do a newscast, and I begged the other people on the newscast to allow me to do the sports section.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And UCLA at the time was a pretty average 5-4 or 6-4 team. In fact, they're 6-4. They were the first 4-loss team to make the Rose Bowl. They kind of backed into the Rose Bowl, meaning other people in front of them lost. That allowed them to go to the Rose Bowl, right? And Carl Durrell was one of the wide receivers on the team during the time. So already having had a fascination with UCLA, when I did the fake broadcast, right? Because the Rose Bowl that year was played January 2nd. And, of course, we were getting out of school like December 20th or December 21st for Christmas break.
Right.
Right. So the newscast was just fully made up because the game hadn't been played yet.
Yeah.
And I remember on my newscast saying unranked UCLA is going to crush 9-ranked Illinois, right, in the Rose Bowl.
Oh,
right?
Man.
and when I did that, my teacher, she just shook her head. And then she, other people in my group got a higher grade than me.
Yeah.
And when I asked her why, I'm like, what happened? I got a lower grade than everyone else on the same newscast.
Right.
And she's like, you didn't take it seriously. I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't take it seriously. And she goes, you didn't take it seriously. An unranked team, there's no way they're crushing a number 9 ranked team in the Rose Bowl. It's not going to happen. Right?
Yeah.
So what's funny is not only did it happen, but UCLA won that game 45-9.
Right? Man.
I mean, they crushed Illinois. And Carl Durrell was a wide receiver on that team, and he caught 2 touchdown passes.
Man, you gotta take him on to the casino, man.
Yeah, no, I know. No. The one thing I don't do is gamble.
Yeah, no, I don't either.
So, but that's not the end of the story. That's actually the beginning of it.
Yeah, so that's how it all starts. So Carl gives you a lower letter grade because his team annihilates Illinois.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't know him then, but 22 years later, in 2006, I, being a season ticket holder of UCLA football and basketball, when they go to finals or bowl games or the Final Four, I'm there.
That's
right?
cool. That's cool.
So in 2006, I was with the alumni group going, with the team to the Final Four in Indianapolis. And I was at LAX, and I saw a gentleman, with a very pretty wife, just sitting in the gate, and I struck conversation, right?
Yeah.
Because I like talking to
everybody. Because that's you.
Yeah, I mean, I will talk to anybody. And so after 20 minutes of conversation, I asked the gentleman, I said, we should all go to dinner sometime. And he smiled, and he goes, we might be a little busy in Indianapolis, but when we get back to LA, sure. And he's like, "Let me give you my card." And he handed me his card, and it said Carl Durrell,
Oh
right?
man.
Head coach UCLA football. And I'm like, wow. Yeah, I looked at his card, and I'm like, I'm a season ticket holder. And he's like, oh, that's great. So the funny thing is, I had no idea it was him because he looks really young.
Right.
So what winds up happening, Carl and his wife Kim, they allow me to take them out to dinner. We remain friends. I go to the bowl game, But here's another interesting part of it. Right after we went out to dinner, when I kept in touch with him, he actually invited me, which to this day, Jonathan, this is one of the coolest things I've ever done in my entire life. Carl invited me to work out with the UCLA players in their private gym at UCLA.
That is cool.
Oh my God. My wife, Shahina, she still teases me. She's like, you were never as cut as when you worked out with a football team. Because I think it lasted about a year and a half.
Oh no! So you did it more. I'm thinking that he let you come down one time. You're saying you did this for?
Oh no.
That is
No.
cool. That is cool.
I did it for a year and a half, and the funny thing is, I guess he thought I was a good inspiration around certain
Totally,
players.
absolutely.
But here I am weighing like 123 pounds, right? Trying my hardest, trying my hardest just to lift the bar without any weights on the bar.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And while these other guys are lifting 400 pounds, and
Right.
they're headed to the NFL draft, and I'm just trying to lift the bar.
Yeah.
Right. So I did that for a year and a half, as long as he was at UCLA.
Yeah.
I met a great. Well, he was there for 5 years, but I started, the workout for a year and a half, and he actually put me in touch with a tremendous UCLA trainer, my buddy Todd, who is now a Los Angeles police officer.
No kidding.
But yeah, so Todd had broken his hand, so Carl put me with Todd because Todd understood how to jimmy the workout equipment to deal with my left hand.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So it was really wonderful. And to wrap up that part of the story, Carl and Kim attended my wedding, right? So when I tell people, hey, I'm friends with Carl Durrell and we still keep in touch and he's a great guy, they're like, you don't know Durrell. And I'm always like, he came to my wedding.
Man, the one thing I love about this story is like you totally. It's not like you saw him. You're like, man, that's Carl Durrell. I'm gonna go over there and talk to him. You just saw the guy with his wife. Like, I'm gonna go talk to this guy, and it's just so hilarious that it was him. And you unknowingly just walked up to him and started talking to him. Like, that's just awesome that it worked out that way.
Yeah, and Jonathan, people that know me know that that's kind of how I operate.
Yeah.
Because I don't really recognize a lot of celebrities because they look different in person.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Right? And when I'm at film festivals, I'm just talking to people. I'm just talking to people, saying hi, introducing myself, and just holding a conversation. But getting back to Carl, amazing guy, amazing person to know, and I do still keep in touch with him.
That's cool.
He's wonderful. But I wanted to slide into one more story because it's also UCLA related.
Yeah, yeah.
And I promise that all of my stories will not be UCLA related. But I am a season ticket holder as well of the Los Angeles Lakers. And years ago, I got upgraded to this much better seating location.
Yeah.
And the first game of that season, there's a very nice lady sitting next to me, and next to her is a very nice elderly gentleman in a wheelchair. Right? And so I say hi, they say hi, whatever. And I just watch the game with my friend, and I'm blown away by the seat upgrade and how happy I am to, have good seats for the Lakers back when they were really good.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? In the Kobe and Shaq years
and
whatnot. So what wound up happening is around the first quarter of the game, huge NBA icons would come by and hug the guy in the wheelchair,
Mm.
right? The first person to come by was Bill Russell and Bob Lanier.
No
The first
kidding.
two people, yeah.
Man.
And then Kareem Abdul-Jabbar came by and
Come
gave him a
on.
hug, right? And so after Kareem came by, I'm like, wait a minute,
You're like, who is this guy?
who is this guy? So I turned to his wife and I'm like, how you doing? I didn't want to bother them,
Right.
but in conversation with her, she noticed my UCLA class ring,
Yeah.
and she's like, oh, you went to UCLA? And I said, I did, yeah. And she goes, that's where I met my husband, right?
Mm.
And so I'm like, okay, more information.
Yeah, there you go.
Right? So about a quarter later, and I forget, I can't lie about this, so I forget which NBA player came by a quarter later, like in the second quarter,
Yeah.
and gave him a hug, and they called him coach.
Mm.
So I turned to the lady and I said, is your husband the coach? And she smiled and she goes, oh yeah, he used to be a coach. He used to coach UCLA. And suddenly I looked at him because, I love UCLA.
Yeah.
So I looked at him and I'm like, your coach is Walt Hazzard? I mean, your husband's Walt Hazzard? And she goes, oh, you know Walt?
Oh, man.
And I'm like, well, now I do. Right? And the funny thing is, for people that don't know, and I don't expect them to, because Walt played in the 60s.
Yeah.
Walt Hazzard was on the 1964 United States gold medal winning Olympic basketball team.
Mm.
He was on the 1965 John Wooden UCLA national championship team, which was actually Wooden's first championship that year. And he was also had a wonderful NBA career, and he was the head coach of UCLA basketball in the 80s, right? And then one amazing thing about him that a lot of people don't know is he was one of the original people that Fat Albert was based on.
No kidding.
Yeah, he was one of Fat Albert's buddies.
No kidding.
Like, yeah, because he was good friends with Bill Cosby.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So, long story short, Walt and I become really good friends. Really good friends meaning, just to be honest, I see him at every game, fist pump, hug, and small talk. And I say small talk because Walt had already had a stroke before I met him. So he couldn't say many words at the time that I met him. But amazingly nice, always shook my hand, gave me a fist pump, and let me hug him. And to me, it was amazing because the other men hugging him were Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and
Bill Russell,
people like that, and Bill Russell, right? So here's the crazy thing. Walt and his wife, Jaleesa, who's an amazing woman, they came to my wedding.
Man.
And I'm not talking up the wedding as much as to say the following point. I never saw Walt outside of his wheelchair because I only saw him at the Lakers games.
Yeah.
And he was always in a wheelchair. But what blew me away at my wedding, Jonathan, is he came without a wheelchair.
No kidding.
He came in with his walking cane. And Jaleesa told me afterwards, she's like, he really refused to bring his wheelchair to your wedding. He wanted to be able to walk.
Wow.
Right? So I don't even know where I'm going with the story outside of the fact that at my wedding, with all these other things to think about, to worry about, to stress about, right? I looked over at one table and I had Walt Hazzard and his wife and Carl Durrell and his wife, right?
Yeah.
And I just sat there thinking, certain things are meant to be in life, and this could be one of them because two guys I idolized growing up have now thought enough of our friendship to be at my wedding.
I know that, and they both went to UCLA.
And they both went to UCLA. So, there's absolutely no other school I was meant to go to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no coincidences in life, so. That's pretty amazing. That's I wonder, like, obviously you probably didn't talk to him about it or whatever, but I wonder if you kind of inspired him to not want to use the wheelchair at your wedding.
Well, I can't talk to that because
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, it's kind of
But
speculating, but
yeah, I don't. But I'll tell you this. But you just triggered a thought. Can I share one more
yeah, yeah,
quickly?
yeah.
It's totally unrelated to Walt and Carl, but it is related to what we're talking about.
Mm.
Growing up, my father was an engineer, and my mother managed a 7-Eleven, right? And in Kansas. And one day after school, I'd go to my mom's store because I got free Big Gulp Dr. Peppers.
Nice.
Which kind of started my addiction to Dr. Pepper, but which I still have today. It's a loud and proud addiction. But what happened one day, my favorite baseball player, who's still my favorite baseball player of all time, is George Brett.
Mm.
Who played for the
Kansas City
Royals
Royal, yeah.
for his entire career. So George Brett comes into the store. I'm with my dad, and I start to freak out. Because my mom's behind the cash register checking George Brett out, whatever he's buying.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And I freaked. I'm like, Dad, it's George Brett. Right? And then I really, really wanted an autograph. Right?
Yeah.
And I started to go towards Brett, and my father calmly, put his arm around me.
Yeah.
And just pulled me back.
Mm.
And I'm like, Dad, it's Brett. And I'm telling you, my dad said it. He just smiled. I just remember he had, at the time, he had like this big, thick mustache, curly black hair, and his glasses. And he just looked at me and said, that's George Brett, and you're Hamad Zaidi. You don't need to bow down to anybody.
Mm.
And when he said that, that's the last time I really cared about an autograph.
Yeah.
Which is why I've never really cared about autographs, and which is why I don't really, I'm not starstruck. I like meeting people a lot, but I've never been starstruck, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, what's kind of funny too, especially about the Carl story is, like, again, you didn't notice it was him. That's what drove you over to talking to him. You just saw him and said, hey, I'm going to go talk to this guy. And you go over and you start talking to him, which I was thinking about how that's interesting for me, because you never know who's who, and it's interesting that it'd be interesting, for more people maybe if they went up and just started talking to someone, like you probably don't get many people walking up to you, Hamad, just because like, oh, look at that guy or whatever, like, wonder what's wrong with him, and they think
Right.
they think all these preconceived notions just by taking a look at you, right?
Yeah, all the time.
I can't do that. I don't have any preconceived notion to anyone until I get to talk to them and get to know who they are. So I've spoken to, like, just interesting people, no one special, but just interesting people throughout my life, because I'm willing to talk to whoever is willing to come up to me and talk, because I don't know who you are until you open your mouth.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, people constantly dismiss me, though.
Yeah.
They which I'm laughing because I mentioned this to you briefly before we started recording.
Yeah.
The reason it makes me laugh is because they think I'm an idiot until they find out I'm married to a physician.
Yeah.
And then they're like, your wife's a doctor? Then all of a sudden they're like, huh, so what do you do again?
Right.
But if I never mention my wife or my kids, then I'm just a little weird, tangled little boy.
Yeah.
Little man.
Yeah.
That they have little interest in talking to.
Yeah. Which is a shame.
But you know what? It is what it is. But I've, like I've said to my friends before, a lot of my friends that consider me good friends, and I consider them good friends, are people I met on a plane.
Well, that's funny. Yeah.
So, and that's happened more than once, more than twice, more than 20 times. I meet people on a plane, and we keep in touch. That's
awesome. Yeah, that's so cool. I love how you're just willing to approach people like that. Like I said, it'd be interesting to see if more people did that. One time when I went to New York City, it blew me away. I was like, we were walking on a sidewalk with my friend, and my friend and I were walking on a sidewalk, and I'm feeling and hearing all these people just walking by, like just jam packed on the sidewalk. I'm like, no one's even acknowledging each other at all. And you're passing by so many people, and no one's like, "Hey, what's up? Hi," And I'm just like, that's amazing to me to think of it that way. And then I go down to North Carolina. I went to Charlotte for a technology conference. I was giving a talk down there, and walking down the road in Charlotte, people are like, "Hey, how you doing?" And I'm kind of like, "Who, me?" Because I'm not used to that living in New England. Anyways, it's like you're talking to me. Like everyone's so nice down there. But like I said, it'd be interesting to see if more people would just get up and start talking to someone.
Yeah, and I always try to instill that exact notion in Lena and Zoe. Like they come home from school and they say, "Hey, Dad, I played with my friend," and I'm always like, "You have more than one friend. You should be playing with everybody, right?"
Yeah.
And your upbringing, I had the exact opposite experience because I grew up in Kansas, where you do say hi to everybody on the sidewalk.
Right.
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 As you just walk by people are like, "Hey," Kansas is very friendly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But then moving to California, you say hi to a stranger and they suddenly wonder, A, why you're doing it, and B, if they met you before and they've forgotten that they met you before.
Or they like reach for their wallet to make sure you don't steal it.
Right, exactly. So, yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm really glad we shared this story today, though. I really appreciate you bringing this out of me. But having said that, I think this might be a nice point to wrap this one up.
Yeah. How can people get a hold of you?
They can email me at hamad@hamadzaidi.com. It's HAMMAD at HAMMADZAIDI.com. Of course, you can download this on iTunes. And please, if you like what you hear, please give us a nice review. We'd greatly appreciate it. And what am I forgetting, Jonathan?
I think that's about it. You can go to hamadzadi.com if you want to go to the actual website. Yeah, please leave a review. Tweet, Facebook, Google Plus, whatever social network will be out tomorrow that I'm not aware of. Who knows?
Yeah, and before I forget, I will say that if you do go to hamadzadi.com, every podcast that we talk about, we upload an image that is an image from the time frame that the story happened to me.
Yes, and I did put, as of today, put a link on the menu that says podcast. And it goes
great.
And it goes
Excellent.
right to every podcast, so you can see. There's an embedded audio player, so you can listen to the podcast right in the website, and you'll also see that image that goes along with the episode.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to let you guys know, the image for the one we just wrapped up today will be, I believe we're going to go with Walt Hazard and his wife Jaleesa at my wedding.
Yeah, so you guys will be able to see Walt and his wife.
There you go.
Awesome.
All right, people, have a wonderful day. Love you all. And Jonathan, take us away.
Thank you for listening and downloading, and we will talk to you next episode. See ya.